Hello, my friends. Welcome to another episode of my podcast, which I have not published in forever. You are going to be very up close to my face, my beautiful face today with all these blemishes. So try not to focus too much on that and just try and focus on the beauty. So I'm so excited. I'm going to be looking down at my computer a lot today because I did a lot of research for today's topic. Today's topic, we're going to be talking about identity formation, okay? Now, I know I haven't published in forever, and I'm sorry. I know you were counting on me, but I cannot stay consistent to save my life. So today's topic is going to be modes of identity, like the different modes, the right and wrong ways to go about it, and stuff like that. And this is all backed by research, which I'll get into in a second. But research suggests that exploration leads to a more meaningful life, which is literally awesome. Who doesn't want to live a meaningful life, right? I can't tell how like the lighting makes me look. So today we're going to be talking about the best paths to walk in to figure out how to figure out your identity and who you are and stuff like that. So this topic matters because identity can be created, not only discovered. So there's two different ways people historically look at identity and how they find their identity and stuff like that, which I'll get into in a few. But there are many possible selves, and that wide range of possibilities is tied to uncertainty and anxiety, and it helps explain why people can get stuck in where they're at. So like there's different stages or whatever to identity formation, and like a lot of times people get stuck in one of the stages because they're looking at it the wrong way, and they just need to figure out how to look at the situation. The point of this episode is kind of a simple message. I want you to stress the importance of exploration in life and exploration in identity so that you don't end up living a life that you don't love and a life that you hate, like years down the line. I don't want you to inherit or like drift into some kind of life. I want you to explore so that you can build one for yourself that's meaningful to you. And I think that like there's a huge kind of identity meaning crisis going on in young people today. That's kind of why I'm talking about it, and I've been dealing with this stuff for the last 2 years. So quick note, this episode is built on identity research. I do have to say this, especially Marcia's identity status model from 1966. If you are like wondering what I'm referencing or what I'm talking about, or is this guy credible, I've spent a lot of time reading actual research papers and research documents and whatever to talk about this today. So this episode is built on identity research, especially Marcia's identity status model from 1966. Definitely take a look at it. And a later extension by, I don't know how to say it, Luyckx and colleagues in 2008 that separates healthy exploration from ruminative stuck exploration. And near the end, I'll reference a youth development paper by Mary Arnold in 2017 on thriving in character. I do have more references throughout, but those are kind of the main ones. And I'll be tying those like references to this episode. So if you want to do your own research, which I highly suggest you do, I always recommend do your own gosh dang research. Don't listen to what everybody just tells you, okay? That's how you end up with identity problems, existential crisis when you're 40 years old, stuff like that, okay? It sucks. So before we get super into this, which this one is very like heady, kind of explanatory, and I'm going to try and make it a little bit fun to listen to. But this is my first episode in a long time, so give me a little bit of grace. The topic is still important. So first I want to define a couple terms, starting with identity. Identity is a clear sense of self made up of goals, values, and behaviors that a person is committed to, giving purpose, direction, and meaning, okay? Identity formation is found to be one of the leading factors for people living an actually meaningful and purposeful life. So that's why I'm talking about this, because this stuff is freaking important, my friend. This is very important. Also, if you're wondering why the audio is a little off or whatever, I am literally sitting up against a wall. I'm in Mexico. Shout out to Mexico. Recording this on my mission trip. So give me a little bit of grace, okay? Don't be so hard on me. So when building identity, there's two drivers to identity formation. Number one being discovery, and the second one being creation. So when it comes to identity, what I mean by like two drivers is I just mean like, are you treating identity like something you find, which is discovery, or something you build, which is creation? And those are kind of the two main like ways people have historically viewed identity, and identity building is through those two different modes. Discovery, which is kind of the idea that there's like a true self that exists that you have to discover. That kind of comes from, it's very Aristotelian. I don't know if I said that right, but that idea kind of comes from Aristotle originally. That kind of view that your true self exists out there somewhere, and you have to just find who you are and whatever through this set of, through this exploration. The second is creation. So like the view that there's no true self and you have to create who the heck you're gonna be. You have to decide who you're gonna be in this world, and you go and create it. So those are the kind of two like historically most used views on like identity and where it comes from and stuff like that. I bring up these two forms of identity because in order to form an identity correctly, we need to use both. We can't just use one or the other. It's not like we're not just discovering who we are and like there's somewhere out there and like I'll find who I am if I just okay, it's not that. And it's also not like I have to create this form or whatever. Like we're going to use a little bit of both to shape who we are, okay? So that's kind of like why I bring up those two drivers, because historically those are kind of two different views on how people go about finding their identity and figuring out who they are as one of the two rather than using both. So if somebody believes identity is solely discovered, exploration can feel like finding the one true answer, and that can create perfectionism. It's kind of like the view like I can't commit until I'm sure that I've found the real me kind of thing. And it's easy to slip into ruminative exploration, which I'm going to get into in a minute. But basically, if you're solely using the discovery method of your identity, it can be almost like you're never going to be satisfied with who you are, because you're always going to be looking for like, did I find like the true version of me? Like, is this it? Like, is this the perfect version of me? And then like once you find something, you might be like, okay, this is me, and you're like stuck. And you're like, okay, this is me for the rest of my life. Like I've figured it out. I don't have to figure it out ever again. And that can lead to some serious problems down the line. Anyways, if somebody believes that identity is solely created, exploration can feel like infinite options. Literally, like, don't even get me started on this, okay? It's kind of like the view, like, I could be literally anything in the world, and like, how do I know what I want to be? How do I know who I'm gonna be? Oh, the lighting just totally changed on me, okay. Well, that's okay. It just looks like I have a white background. Anyways, the view is kind of like, it kind of paralyzes people because it gives them like way too many options. If you've heard of it in psychology, there's like this problem where it's like if you have too many options, your research shows that you're like less satisfied with the option that you choose. So like if you're in the grocery store and you have 3 options of shampoo and you pick one of them, you're probably going to be pretty satisfied with that. You're going to be like, okay, like, yeah, I chose the best one most likely. But if you have 100 shampoos in front of you, you have to decide now between 100 of them, and what's the chances that you got the best one for you? 1 in 100. It's like Then you go home and you're like rethinking everything. You're like, did I make the right decision? Is this like the right thing and whatever? And it's like you get stressed out and you're unsatisfied. The more options you have statistically, the less likely you are to be like satisfied with the decision that you've made. Same with identity. Like when you're trying to create your identity, solely create it, you're looking at this blank canvas. You're looking at infinite amounts of opportunity and possibility and like, who do you want to be? Who can I be? And whatever. And you've got this, like, literally everything's open right now. And because of that, there's so many options. We get stuck and we're like, I don't even know where to start. We can get stuck in the diffusion state, which I'll explain a little bit later as well. But that can trigger a lot of anxiety and whatever. And it's just not fun, man. It's just not fun. So don't do it. Don't do it. We're going to use discovery and we're going to use creativity. So we're going to use both of them to create, to figure out who the heck am I going to be? Who do I want to be? Right? Okay, awesome. Now you're tracking. Okay, good. See, I knew you had this. So the best way to kind of look at this is like discover what fits through exploration, which is kind of like testing your values, your talents, figuring out what you value, figuring out what you like, what you're good at, what do you like, whatever, and then create commitments, which are like choices and actions, like choose something from those values and from what you're good at, which I'm going to get into in a few minutes. But now you have that kind of framework, exploration and commitment. Okay, so it's discovery and creation, exploration and commitment. So exploration, I'm going to get into kind of breaking down what that means, like exploring your identity. What the freak are you talking about, Jameson? Dude, I don't even know what I'm talking about half the time, okay? Like, good luck. If you can track with me, you are a genius. Anyways, exploration involves searching for and testing possible roles, values, goals, beliefs, and skills driven by the question, is this me? So exploration is all about like asking yourself, is this me? Do I value this thing? Do I value this thing? Do I believe this thing? What do I think about the world? What do I think about this or that? What am I good at? Like figuring out what you're good at, like discovery. Exploration is discovering, like, is this me? Am I an artist? And like, what kind of role do I play in society? What kind of role do I play in my friendships and, stuff like that. So there's two key forms of exploration. And this is important because exploration is a very good thing, okay? It's a very good thing when it comes to like forming your identity and who you are. Asking yourself, is this me? Do I believe this? Do I value this? Is very important when it comes to forming your identity. But there's two different ways to go about it, and one of them can be very bad, actually. So so there's two different forms of exploration as well. So there's two forms, and then there's two types. I don't know, hard to explain, but anyways, I'll explain. Exploration and breadth, searching different alternatives, goals, values, beliefs before making any commitments. So basically, like, you're exploring, what do I believe? Like, do I believe in Hinduism? Do I believe in Christianity? Do I believe in nothing? Am I atheist? Like, am I agnostic? You're kind of exploring the ideas, more like kind of entertaining them, or devil's advocate even. Like, what do I think about this philosophy? Like, does this make sense to me? And if it doesn't, then you're not forming that as your identity. Like, you're not committing to that thing. So it's like, I'm researching Taoism or Buddhism and I'm like really into it. And I'm like, okay, maybe there's some things that make sense and whatever. So I'm going to research it and I'm going to explore it a little bit, see if it makes sense for me, see if it aligns with my values and whatever. And I'm going to figure out, like, does this thing make sense? Is this me? Without making that commitment. Like, I am a Buddhist or whatever, And then there's exploration and depth, which is kind of, so breadth, that's exploration and breadth. And then exploration and depth, which is evaluating and re-evaluating existing commitments to see whether they match internal standards. So that's kind of like exploring the things that you already have committed to. So the goals that you've already made, or the life you're already living, the beliefs you've already committed to, like it's kind of exploring those things. Like I say I'm like a Christian, and like, okay, cool. Like now let's explore that in depth. Like, why do I believe that I'm a Christian? Does this make sense? Does do all the values make sense? Do they align with my internal kind of sense of morality or whatever? Stuff like that. So it's kind of the two different types, which is not super important. It's just a little nerdy and technical, like that's me, I guess. I don't know, like I'm a little nerdy sometimes. So exploration has been found to be one of the most important aspects, okay, of identity formation, okay? And figure out who you are and who you want to be and who you are in the world. When it comes to figuring out who you are in the world, who you want to be, whatever I just said, you need exploration. It is so freaking important. It is vital, okay? Research says this. It's not just me, okay? This is like literally not me. And so, yeah, you need exploration in your life. But now we're going to get into commitments. So commitment is the degree to which someone has made identity relevant choices, values, expectations, parameters, goals, beliefs, education, vocation, which is your job. Commitment is multidimensional. It's not just choosing, but how internalized and owned those choices are. So basically, commitment usually comes when you have explored new experiences or beliefs, and you come to some sort of conclusion through that exploration that seeks to align with your internal moral compass. Now I sound like a freaking guru or whatever, or I don't know if I sound like a guru or like a nerd. Probably the latter. Anyways, so commitment is very important when in identity formation, because it's like without commitment, you're never gonna have a solid identity ever. You're gonna just be like floating around in space. And I've written like so many essays on this. I think I'm gonna start like releasing my essays or something, but we'll see about that. That's a future goal. But anyways, so in identity formation, okay, let's just recap a little bit. In identity formation, you need exploration and you need commitment, okay? And both are very, very important in order to like form who you need to be and who you are. So exploration is like discovering, what do I believe about the world? What do I believe about what I value? Like what makes sense, what doesn't make sense, without necessarily committing to something. So I can research Buddhism, I can research Christianity, I can research these different beliefs without like making myself like, I am a Christian, I am a Buddhist or whatever, right? So I'm like doing all this research, like figuring out what makes sense and like what does this like, is this right or wrong? Like when figuring that out. And then commitment is basically finding one of those things that like aligns with your internal kind of moral compass. Like there's so much philosophy on like morality is not objective and it's all subjective and whatever. Like it's crazy. Okay. I'm not getting into that debate, but everybody does have some kind of moral like compass, like in a sense. You kind of have some, like you can argue all day. I could argue, I've done it before, trust me. Anyways, let's just say you explore all these ideas and then you come to a conclusion. You're like, wow, Christianity really fits all this stuff. It's just seeming to make sense. I'm going to commit to this thing. And then you commit your life to that thing. You're like, okay, I've found all these different things that I'm like good at. I've got all these talents. I've got like these beliefs about the world or whatever. I have this education and now I'm going to commit to this job. I'm going to make this commitment into this job. And that is kind of the commitment aspect of identity formation. So now I'm going to take a sip of tea. Okay, so I don't know if I recapped that well, but I think I did. So you need the two different aspects when it comes to identity formation, my friends, okay? It's very important. Okay, so now we have, moving on, the mixed findings problem. Exploration is linked both with openness and curiosity. When you explore new things and ideas and beliefs and whatever, you have to be open and you have to be curious. But it's also linked with higher anxiety rates and depressive symptoms. Yay, nobody likes that, right? I say this because there's a lot of research that suggests the more exploration you go through, the more meaningful life you may live and the more fulfilled you may become. It has been found that exploration is not just one process. There's not just one way of exploring things, exploring reality, I guess, right? It's not just one process, but there are different types of exploration. So this is important because the more exploration you tend to go through, the higher kind of like the higher return rate you'll get long term. It's like the more you explore things, the more you ask questions and find things and figure out what is it I believe in, whatever. Your commitment when you finally come to a conclusion, when it comes to identity, is going to be so much more firm and like less likely to like break over time. Like you are going to be set for freaking life. You're going to be like, okay, I believe this and I know why I believe it. Or I have this job because I know that I'm good at these things, I value these things, and I believe in these things, and I'm good at and whatever. I like these things, and so I committed to this job. And now you're never gonna wake up wondering, wait a second, why am I working this job? Like I hate this job. Like this life is like not me. I just woke up here and I'm like living a life that I hate. You're never going to be like that because you're going to be like, no, I chose this job with intention. I chose this job, or I chose this belief. I chose this whatever it is with intention. I explored and I figured out what it is that I value, that I believe. And because of that, like my job means something to me now. Like my life has meaning now, okay? So the more exploration you go through in life, the more, the higher chance of living a more purposeful and meaningful life you have, okay? Which is freaking awesome. But it's also tied to a lot of anxiety. Like exploration means, like, what does that mean, right? If you take a step back, and I'm kind of going off script here for sure, but if you take a step back and just ask yourself, what does exploration mean? It means like, oh, you're literally, like, if you think about it, identity, like, identity is kind of like the foundation of your life. You're building a house, right? And exploration is like saying goodbye to the island you've lived on your whole life and literally freaking sailing the sea into like you don't know where. And you're like, oh, like you find this other belief and you find this other, it's like you're in space, okay? Or, no, okay, we're gonna stick with the one metaphor, okay? I have problems with metaphors. Identity is like you've got this island, and it's everything you believe, everything you see the world through, and whatever. To explore is to literally set sail, say goodbye to all that comfort, all that security that you have at home, and to accept the unknown. It is to, go through storms, go through waves, go through freaking whatever. And then you're going to find like, oh, there's other little small islands that other people have found before. And then you kind of land on those and you're like, oh, okay, like maybe I'll stock up on food here. And then you keep going and you're like, island's not for me. And you keep going and you find another one and another one and another one. And you just keep exploring, and it's not comfortable. Like, if you really think of it, like the exploration phase is not, it's not like super fun. Sometimes it is, but it's not very like comfortable. That's what I'm trying to say. And that's why a lot of people have a hard time. Like that's why when forming your identity, it gets really hard to like accept that exploration phase. And a lot of times people tend to like set sail and they're like, okay, like I'm gonna go find out who I am, and then they get sucked right back to the island they came from because they're like, oh, this is not for me. Like this is a huge thing in identity. Like because it's not it's not comfortable. Like we go straight back to where we came from and we're like, nope, not for me. And then we make excuses for what we believe is right. And we, basically look for, what's the word when it's like confirmation bias. And we look for confirmation bias to basically prove like this island is the right island. I'm living in the right place, even though you may know you have no idea why you're living there because you never went anywhere else. Anyways, I digress. I do that a lot. I'm so sorry, my friends. Like, these episodes don't have to be this long, but I'm trying to explain it from multiple different like directions and stuff. So you're welcome. So the more you explore in your life, the more likely you are to live a meaningful, purposeful life. However, it is tied to anxiety and whatever. Okay. We took a short little intermission there. So now we are on, okay, so I'm gonna pick up the pace a little bit because I'm probably boring you half to death. There's two types of exploration. One, healthy exploration, which I kind of, anyways. And the second is ruminative exploration. So the difference here is it has been found, exploration driven by curiosity and learning that moves towards clarity is healthy, and it's a good thing. Basically, this is like trying options in the real world, which is like taking new classes, figuring out what I like, what am I good at, going to new communities, figuring out like, are these people for me, getting new habits or whatever, trying new roles, rather than only thinking about them. So that's very good. When you're exploring, you want to do it in a specific way. You don't want to like do it the wrong way, okay? So you want to have kind of a goal in mind, somewhere you want to be. And sometimes you don't know what that goal is at first. And sometimes you just have to set sail, baby. So you're trying new classes, you're figuring out what am I good at, what do I like to do, and whatever. And then you're asking better questions over time. So at first your questions are kind of like, what do I believe? I don't know. And then you start like asking yourself like, does this fit my values? Does this job fit my values? Do these, people, do they align with me, like my ideas or whatever? What energizes me? What kind of person does this make me? Your questions kind of get more tailored and a little bit better over time, and you're able to answer those a little bit better over time the more that you explore, okay? Testing and narrowing. Healthy exploration leads to clearer commitments, okay, even if they're temporary. So healthy exploration is like, I'm going to try this path for 30 days. Like, I think that Christianity might be it. So you're going to kind of commit to this thing for 30 days or whatever. Like, you're going to test drive it. Is this for me? And you're going to like actually do your best. Like when you're exploring, my friend, that's the thing, is like you have to actually commit. You have to actually leave your house. You have to leave your island, leave your comfort zone, explore, find something, and then actually commit and see if it works for you. And that's kind of like what healthy exploration is. So reflection with forward motion. You evaluate what you learned, update your beliefs, and make a next move. So healthy exploration includes a lot of reflection, like, does this work for me? Does this not work for me? Like, whatever, instead of rumination, which I'll get to in a second. In short, healthy exploration is structured curiosity that reduces uncertainty over time and eventually supports commitment, okay? Now, the second type of exploration, which this is where I've been at for like 2 years now, is ruminative exploration, and it freaking sucks. But there's lots of lessons learned, baby. This is kind of like when exploration becomes looping and anxiety driven, spinning rather than progressing, okay? So ruminative exploration is identity searching that turns into a mental loop. It's driven more by fear, perfectionism, or threat than curiosity, and it tends to look like endless analyzing without testing. So lots of thinking, little action. So it's like, does Christianity make sense? Does Buddhism make sense? Does this stuff make sense? Like morally, like this says this and that says that and this says whatever. And it's like my values and this and that, and like you're all over the place and you're thinking all the time, which is great. Great to think about things, but it's not great if you don't ever test it. Okay, so the thing is with healthy exploration is like you think about things and you're reflecting, figuring out what works, and then you're testing it and you're like, okay, does this actually work? I'm gonna actually try and believe this thing, or whatever. I'm gonna test it. Where ruminative is like you're endlessly analyzing something, which when you get into analyze loops, it freaking sucks. Okay. And then this also includes second guessing every option because you want certainty before you move. Oh my gosh, guys, I have a problem with this, okay? Second guessing every option. So it's basically like, I'm a very certainty driven person, okay? Like I want to know the gosh dang answer, okay? Before I move forward, I'm not gonna move anywhere until I know that this answer is the gosh dang right answer, okay? And that is a problem. Because of that, I end up not going anywhere. And I end up like not committing to anything because I am so like over analytical about things. And it's like literally not even okay. All right. So it's not healthy. Research shows. Okay. I'm glad to know that like I could have literally just read this research paper like 2 years ago and saved myself so many headaches. Just kidding, because I don't listen to advice. Repetitive questions that don't resolve. What if I choose wrong? What if I'm not really this person? What if there's a better option? There's always, see, this is the thing with psychology that I was telling you earlier. You got a million different shampoo bottles. You're not going to be satisfied with your answer because you're going to be like, what if it's that shampoo? Like, what if that's the better one? What if like, did I choose the right one? Is this like, you know what I'm saying? Repetitive questions that don't resolve. It's not healthy, man. Feeling worse the more you explore. So like the more you explore, the worse you feel. You have more anxiety, you have self-doubt, and paralysis instead of clarity. This brings people, this type of exploration brings people into the ground. It brings people into diffusion, which I'm about to explain in just a second, if I could stop yapping. Anyways, commitment avoidance disguised as depth. Oh, this one hurt my soul. This one hurt my soul. So I realized recently I've been doing a lot of like, self-awareness stuff or whatever. And I've found like I have a big problem with commitment, okay? And like, yeah, a lot of times I thought it was like depth and thought I was like being smart or whatever. But subconsciously it could be like I have a problem with commitment. So it can sound profound, but it prevents decision making. Oof. So like even though like yes, like Socrates questioned all this stuff. He explored these questions and whatever, but he never landed on an answer. That's kind of like the problem that we're getting at here is like he explored and whatever, but because he was like so unsure and he's like, well, I don't know anything, right? Like, and it is deep, it is depth. Like, yes, that is good, but that leads to lack of commitment over time, right? So in short, ruminative exploration keeps uncertainty high and blocks commitment, and it's associated with greater distress. So my friends, when you're exploring the world, which I highly, highly encourage you to do so with a goal in mind, a set direction, potentially, hopefully, test things out, actually try things on. Don't just look at the clothes in the mirror. Don't just window shop, but go to the freaking like changing room and try them on. See if they actually look good on you or whatever, Anyways, so now that we have literally what was supposed to take 5 minutes, exploration and commitment down, I hope that makes sense. I hope that all makes sense. You need exploration, you need commitment. I'm not gonna go through it again because I'll talk for another 30 minutes if I do. Classic identity statuses, okay? Now this is where, what's that guy's name? Marcia's identity status model from 1966. This is where Marcia, our old psychologist friend, comes in, okay? So the identity statuses, okay? Like this is tying exploration and commitment into different statuses that we find ourselves in, okay? So when it comes to identity, we kind of land in one of these four stages or statuses or whatever. The first one is diffusion. This is a state of low exploration in life and low commitment. So you haven't committed to anything. You're like, I don't believe in anything. You're kind of like in space, or okay, back to the water. You're in the middle of the ocean. You don't care to go anywhere. You're lacking food probably. You're just like chilling and you're like, I don't care to go anywhere. Doesn't matter. I'm not going to commit to anything because I'm out in the middle of the freaking ocean. But like, I don't care to go find a place to live. So that's diffusion. You have no strong identity commitments and little active exploration. It's kind of like apathy for your identity. It's like, I don't care who I am. I don't care who I want to be. It doesn't really, whatever. And this happens a lot, like for a lot of different reasons, which I'll get into in a second. But this is when you kind of sit on the couch, you're not caring about where you are in life or where you want to be. And this can come from many different reasons, okay? This problem is tied to a lot of motivation, emotional regulation problems, even things like learned helplessness, which I've done an episode on before. Go check it out. It's pretty sick. But the key factors that may contribute to this state is stress levels, or to say it like Jordan Peterson, chaos levels. Your chaos levels are through the roof, my friend. And this can come from like that exploration phase too, like big time. Like if you explore the wrong way and you do it terribly, you can get stuck in this diffusion state and you're like, I don't know where to go. I'm not going to go anywhere because you don't know where to go. When there's too much stress, oftentimes we'll just kind of shut down. So think of our life in terms of order and chaos. I'm going to make it kind of poetic like Jordan Peterson. I've been taking some of his courses, so there's that. But our story, okay, can be in shambles. And this is a whole episode for another time, okay? Like how to plan your life and stuff. It's crazy. But basically, planning our future looks like a possibility. Planning our future is like endless possibility. It's endless, like I said before with the commitment thing. You've got a million different options. Shampoo bottles, okay? Endless possibility, and possibility is chaos because there's no commitment to anything. It's all chaos. So chaos simply because we don't know what it looks like. We don't know what the future looks like. We don't know what the future holds. We could never know, right? And it's impossible for us to know, but we have to enter it anyways. We have to face it. So we look to the future, trying to predict it. We try and predict it. And this kind of gets into phenomenology a little bit. But we make projections or predictions of the future. And that is our minds trying to bring order into the unknown, okay? So I had to explain that a little bit. Like the future is unknown and it's chaos and it's endless possibility, right? And so if there's too much chaos in the future and you couldn't predict anything, you can't even predict tomorrow or next week. It can paralyze you because there's too much to know and figure out. The task is way too big. You get stuck even being able to try. So you get stuck in this diffusion state because you're like, there's so many options out there. There's so much to do. Like that's going to take forever to figure out. It's going to I don't even know how to start. And so you get stuck in this kind of loop of you're like, yeah, I'm just going to not do anything, I guess. And this can be a reason for diffusion and same with unhealthy exploration. Because there are so many options you haven't mapped out. You have to organize everything. You don't even know how to begin, and you find no interest in anything because you have so much to organize and figure out. So you just okay, screw it. I'm going to turn that off and just say whatever. However, I would highly recommend you don't do this because that's how, and I can talk about this later, more in another episode, but that's how this diffusion state is how you end up living a life that you absolutely hate way later down the line. You end up just kind of floating through life, just living in the middle of the ocean. I'm just, whatever. I'm just floating, baby. And then you don't care about anything. You don't care about where you're going. And then eventually one day you wake up, you're like, holy crap, I have kids. I have a family to take care of. I have this job that I hate, and I have this like what is this life? Like I didn't choose this. It's not meaningful to me. Maybe it is. Maybe it is. But you don't know because you didn't. It's not purposeful to you or whatever. Like there's a high chance of that happening. But this state, diffusion, commonly correlates with symptoms like difficulty in social groups, low self-esteem, hopelessness, social isolation. This isn't a place where you want to stay, my friends, but often we do because we become stuck. So if you're at a place of low exploration, you're like, okay, I don't care to explore new ideas or beliefs or thoughts or values, and I'm not committed to anything right now. Like I don't really have much commitment. Like I would encourage you to get out of your comfort zone a little bit. Second is foreclosure status. Foreclosure is low exploration and high commitment. So you have commitments formed without exploring alternatives, often shaped by expectations of others. So this is kind of like when, this is very common in religious communities and stuff like that, but it's kind of like where a kid grows up in a church or believing in this thing without exploring it for themselves. They just believe in this thing without exploring it for themselves, right? This is the foreclosure state. And as they get older, they cling to it because that's what they know. The same thing goes for kids who grow up wanting to be like doctors or whatever. Let's just say this, like kids, like, you know, growing up, they're like, people are like, what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be a doctor. Okay, cool. So the longer they say that to people over and over and over again, they kind of get a pat on the back, and people are like, oh, great for you. Like, congrats. You want to, like, you know what you want to do with your life. And then over time, that kind of idea of I want to be a doctor becomes just more and more ingrained into their mind, without them even exploring other options or anything. They just kind of like commit to this thing. And then like later down the line, they're like taking college classes and whatever, and they're like, holy crap, I hate these classes. Like, oh my gosh, like this is not for me. Like I don't even want to do this job. Like, or they get to the job and they're like, this is not what I thought it was going to be. Like, I hate my life, because you committed to something that you didn't have a reason to commit to, kind of thing. And that's kind of foreclosure. However, foreclosure, this state of committing to something without exploring it, is linked to, like in the moment, less anxiety, which is super cool. And it makes sense because you've kind of made up your mind. You're like, I'm doing this thing. Nothing else matters. You kind of, whatever. Nothing else matters. So has been found to be linked to more existential crises later on in life. And people who get stuck in this foreclosure kind of state, this state commonly correlates to, according to research, not me, okay, I do have sources, authoritative people, closed-minded tendencies, less openness to challenging beliefs, often less anxiety than moratorium / diffusion patterns, which I'll get into moratorium in literally a minute. But these people are more authoritative, less open to challenging beliefs, less open, like very closed-minded, but then long-term end up having problems like existential crises sometimes. Not all the time, but a lot of times. So I would encourage you, my friends, like whether that be exploration in depth or breadth, right? Maybe it's like you believe in Christianity, you've grown up in the church and whatever. I would encourage you, explore what you believe in depth. You know, like if you're already committed to this belief, like I'm a Christian or I'm a Hindu or I'm a Buddhist, like explore in depth. It doesn't have to be breadth, right? So depth is kind of like, okay, like challenging your kind of belief. Like, does this, like, what does the Bible say about this? Like, what does the Book of Mormon say about this? Like, asking these questions about your fundamental beliefs, like exploring your beliefs in depth, okay? Because then you'll have way more meaning and you'll have way more purpose. You'll like understand it way more, and you'll be like, oh, I know why I believe this thing is true. I know why, because I've explored it, okay, in depth, okay? So it doesn't have to be like exploring in a way that's like, what do I believe? Is it Hindu? Is it Islam? Is it, you know, whatever? you can just explore in depth, like, okay, what does the Bible say about this? And like how do I grapple with that? And how do I make it make sense? Stuff like that. So you don't always have to like leave the island in order to explore, you know? So anyways, I was just tying that back to that. Because it does lead to a lot more like meaning. Like you're gonna look back and you're gonna be like, wow, like I believe this thing for a reason now, and it makes sense to me now. And you're not just gonna be closed-minded and whatever, which is very common. Anyways, these next two will be a lot shorter for me to explain. The next status is moratorium. I know it sounds scary, but it's when you have high exploration and low commitment. This is not a terrible place to be. It's actually psychologically, people have found that this is like one of the best places to be. Anywhere you have high exploration is long term more of a better place to be. At least that's what I've seen in all the papers that I've read so far. So moratorium is kind of when you're actively searching but not yet settled into clear commitments. So you're kind of like, I'm looking for these things, but I don't know where I'm going. And that's okay. Like, so it's not always a bad thing. This stage is often linked with anxiety, like the diffusion state. The diffusion state often has a lot of anxiety linked to it. And this is kind of when you are actively exploring new ideas, new beliefs, new foundations, and taking new classes in school, trying new hobbies, trying new habits, you know, like seeing what works for you. And you're kind of just floating. You're drifting through life a little bit. You're kind of like, I'm not, I don't know what I believe. I don't know what I value, whatever. And you are just kind of drifting, but you are searching for kind of like an end goal. So that's moratorium, high exploration, low commitment. Number 4, my friends, number 4 is achievement status, which is high exploration and high commitment. So this is a self-determined identity based on one's own beliefs, values, goals, you know, whatever, often reflected in career, direction, social roles, and ideology. This is found with high amounts of exploration and then high levels of commitment. So searching for belief endlessly, like, oh my gosh, like whether it was exploration in depth or breadth, I'm going to explore preferably in the healthy way. Okay, don't do it the way I've been doing it. Okay. Test things out, like try things and, you know, try on the clothes before you buy them. But also don't just not commit to anything, okay? Like a little testing is healthy, okay? So searching for a belief and then committing to one or a job or whatever. So like taking some classes, like exploring could be taking new classes in college or whatever and being like, okay, are these classes, like, do I like these? And then once you find something you like commit to it and you're like, oh wow, like now I've got this job. You've explored and then you've committed and you're like, wow, like this job is the one for me. It aligns with my values. It aligns with my beliefs. It aligns with my like interests, what I'm good at, whatever. That's the achievement status. That's what we're all kind of aiming for. But I find most people, I'd say like in the religious community, I mean, a lot of people, I guess, maybe my age, are in the foreclosure state. There's a lot of people in the diffusion state. I think I've found myself in the moratorium state, very explorative or something, and not committing to anything for a long time. But anyways, so now where am I going to take all this research and stuff? Holy crap. Okay, yeah, we're finishing up here. This is the last part, okay? So thank you so much for hanging in there with me. Progressive and evolving identity formation. So positive identity formation is progressive. Initial commitments often form earlier, then get explored in increasing depth through middle to late adolescence. This can be framed as balancing. Okay. So when you're kind of exploring, I just kind of want to leave you with this idea of like how to explore. Like, what does that freaking mean? Like, how do you, whatever. Progressive and evolving identity formation. it has been like exploration has been tied to, what was it? Positive identity formation. Exploration has, okay. So you want to explore. And so you may be thinking, what does that mean? How do I do that? So it's kind of tied to, you can frame it as balancing. Jordan Peterson has this like idea of balancing on the edge of order and chaos, okay? So basically, it's like living in known territory. So basically, everything that you know, everything that you believe, everything you value is all explored territory, okay? Like you've mapped everything out. You understand the world to be this way, this worldview or whatever. But then to explore would be to kind of like, let's just say you've got this castle or whatever, okay? So you've got this castle, you've got this pasture, or whatever, like you have this chunk of land, and this is everything that you know, everything you understand about the world and whatever you believe, you value. And then to explore outside of that would be like kind of walking on the like, everything else is chaos. Everything else is the unknown world is chaos. Because you don't know what's out there, you don't know what it holds, right? So positive identity formation has been linked with stepping outside of that boundary of the known world. So everything that you know over here and comfortable with and whatever, you're kind of stepping out of that land a little bit, and you're kind of balancing. You're not going too far into the unknown. You're not like going way out here, because that's how you get swallowed up and go like in bad places. But you're kind of like balancing on the edge, okay? You're kind of like going out a little bit of the pasture. You're kind of going out into new territory, exploring that a little bit, and then coming back maybe, and then going out a little bit farther. And then that's how it's kind of like, what's that game? Like, not Agario, but it's like Agario, but it's like Snake something. Slitherio. No, that's not it. It has been linked to positive identity formation, and who doesn't want to live a great life, right? Intentional exploration of the unknown to build a meaningful life. Like, meaning and stuff is something I'll get into in another episode, but in order to live a more meaningful and purposeful life, you have to explore outside of your comfort zone, outside of your little bubble of known reality. And research shows that flourishing includes 4 pillars. Screw this flourishing part. I'm not even going to read this end part of, yeah, screw that. Screw that. My research for this is, I'm just going to say irrelevant, okay? I'm going to end it on this. So kind of, you got the ideas of identity formation, exploration, why it's important, commitment, why that's important. You need it. You need both, okay? Not just one or the other. And that's the whole message again. Explore so you don't drift into a life. Explore so you can build one with direction. Exploring in life is not a bad thing. It's a scary thing, but it's not a bad thing. And it will lead you to a more meaningful and purposeful life over time. Psychology literally supports this or whatever. So if you are, had a quick note, like how to figure out where you're at in life. If you're in a diffusion state, your move is like, you want to kind of one small experiment this week. Like, just step a little bit outside of that little comfort zone, okay? Like, you want to step out of your comfort zone, out of your known area just a little bit. That's kind of like your goal, is just move somewhere with direction or purpose or whatever, somewhere. Make a small commitment, make a small exploration into something. If you are in the foreclosure state, which is high commitment, low exploration, if you've found that you like just you're gung-ho on this lifestyle or this belief or whatever, and you don't know why, I would encourage you, explore one alternative seriously. If your whole life goal is to be a doctor, like, and you just knew that since you were 5 years old, I would suggest that you look into something else. Just look into it. Look into something else seriously. Figure out what you value. figure out your values or whatever. Like if you've believed this one thing your whole life, look into it deeply, or look into a different belief deeply. Like whatever it is, just look into something deeply. And then if you are in the moratorium state, which is high exploration, low commitment, make a 30-day commitment. Just make some kind of commitment. That's my advice to you, backed by research. Make some kind of commitment, like 30 days. I'm going to like actually try and like believe this thing. I'm going to wrestle with these ideas. I'm going to like see if this lifestyle works for me, if this belief system works for me, or if this job works for me. Like I'm going to really like commit to this thing for just a short period of time. Because that's the goal of exploration. You want to commit to something. You want to, that's the goal. If you are ruminating in your exploration, if you are in a over-analytical state, if you're sitting here like in that rumination state of like exploration, you're like, I am like, can't commit to nothing. I'm over, like, there's way too many shampoo bottles. I can't commit to literally anything. I don't know where to go. I'm so lost. I'm like, there's so much stuff out there. Like, I don't know how I'm going to make a commitment or whatever. Your move is to stop thinking and start testing. One real world action. So instead of sitting here analyzing all the different arguments for belief or figuring out what job is the best job, like commit to something. Stop analyzing and start trying. Okay. So that is my little lecture, you could say. It was definitely a lecture on identity formation and exploration and commitment and the different stages and whatever. I'm sure you're bored as heck by now, but if you made it this far, thank you so much for listening. I literally love you so much. I could just kiss you right now. But I'm going to try and publish more frequently. That's the hope. But you know me, I can never do that. So we'll see where we go with that. Anyways, peace out for now. Thanks for watching.